Friends, enemies, those still under review, today we are going to be talking about Constantine the First. No, not the Roman Emperor. He's way cooler and way more competent. We're talking about Constantine the First of Greece. So, for all of you British people and Americans who are weirdly obsessed with the British royal line, Philip is the... So Constantine is the first cousin once removed of Philip. Constantine is the first cousin once removed of Philip. So Constantine is king of Greece during World War One, and during World War One, every country in Europe had to pick a side, unless you were the people who were neutral. But Greece didn't have that option. So both the Entente is Britain, France, and Russia, and the Central Powers were Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottomans. All of these powers wanted other countries to join them. The Central Powers got Bulgaria, and the Entente got America and Japan, and Italy, but we don't talk about that. Anyway, so the Central Powers were fairly confident that they could get Greece to support them because Constantine and his family were German. Or at least they were from Germany. The family was from Germany, so the Germans were fairly certain they could get him on their side. And they could. But they overestimated how much influence Constantine actually had on the Greek foreign affairs. So Constantine was a huge supporter of the Central Powers. But the Greek government, specifically the president, were very pro-Entente. And there's a couple reasons for this. France and Britain were very democracy-centric. While Britain had a king, yes, their king was a figurehead, and the parliament held all the power. In France, they were very committed to Republican ideals. So this democratically elected government in Greece were more aligned towards the democracies of the world. But the king was more aligned towards the monarchies. And Germany had the Kaiser, the Austrians had the emperor, and the Ottomans had the caliph and the sultan. Same word, or it's the same person, but they had two different words for it. Anyway, so the king was more aligned with the monarchies. Now, eventually, in 1917, while the war is starting to turn in the Entente's favor, it hadn't quite become certain who was going to win, but it was veering away from the Central Powers. Anyway, in 1917, the king, Constantine, is ousted from Greece, and Greece joins the Entente. So they can't get rid of the monarchy, or at least they don't want to get rid of the monarchy. So what they do is they put in his son, Paul. Now, Paul the First he's very young, and he pulls an Edward the Seventh. British history, people. And that's none of you. Edward the Seventh married a commoner, and that's what Paul did. Paul married a common woman who had no royal descent, and he was basically forced out of the country for a few months. And then when he comes back, when I say, so I did research for this episode. I rarely do research for these little rants. When I saw how Paul died, I literally laughed. Paul died because he got bitten by a monkey and had got a fucking infection that turned into sepsis, and he died. Let me reiterate. A king of Greece died from a monkey. Greece is a shit show. Anyway, so Paul dies, and instead of putting his brother on the throne, because I don't think Paul had any children, so instead of putting his brother on the throne, they're like, hey, why don't we just put his father back on the throne? Because that's not going to cause any problems. In case you're wondering, he was deposed again. Constantine the First was deposed. again, and then was replaced with his other son, who also died without children and was replaced by Constantine's other son. So Constantine had 5 children. 2 of them, so one of them was married to a German prince. The other was married to the king of Romania. And the other 3, so his 2 daughters were married to a prince and a king. And each of his sons, Paul Constantine II, and the other one, each of his sons ended up becoming king, which is very, very unusual. But yeah, that's Constantine I. Thank you for Wilbur to get me on this weird-ass train wreck. I now know more about Greek dynastic politics than I have ever wanted to know. But you did force me to learn about Paul I dying because a capuchin bit him. Anyway, have fun, bully Sora, and remember, Allie, I have your email address.